Welcome to Anything Cricket, Let's Talk. In this episode, we are going to be discussing the selection of the West Indies T20 team for the World Cup. We're also going to have a chat with a young rising star by the name of Kevin Wickham. And we're going to be chatting with a guy who has created something to do with cricket, but it's not played on the field. It's played pretty much undercover. And we're going to be hearing from him on this episode of Anything Cricket, Let's Talk. Well, we've got a very special guest on our show, Baswell Job. Did I get that right, Baswell? Welcome to Anything Cricket, Let's Talk.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Welcome to Anything Cricket, Let's Talk. And tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I do like sports. I used to follow a lot of cricket, not in detail, but sufficient enough to know the game and to enjoy a good game of cricket. Most of my life, I was a very active sports enthusiast, played a lot of basketball and into some more tennis now. But I had to take a sabbatical because I had a surgery on my knee. But that is healing, and I'm just looking forward to that. Personally, I'm married with two big daughters, and in the IT field where I work, and always coming up with different ideas, and this game being one of them. So in a nutshell, that's
okay. So you mentioned the game, Baswell, and of course you were telling me off camera about this game, and sounds like a very exciting proposition. Tell us a bit more.
well, I had this game in mind for a very long time as I attended a number of cricket matches and learned a bit about it. It is a board game that fully simulates a T20 match. It is made up of two teams, Team A and B, and each team can be comprised of between 2 to 10 players. And you can have, each team will have a captain, and the captain will decide on the amount of overs that they're going to play in this match, whether it be 2 overs or 10 overs. The game will start by the captains tossing a coin, and whoever wins the toss will determine whether they want to bat or bowl. And that's the game, how it will start. If you decide to bat, then you put your bat on the board, and the game begins by the bowler bowling, as it were. And there are all the ways that you can get out in a normal cricket game. Those events are part of this game. You can get run out, you can get LBW, you can get caught, bowl. All of the events are there. And you can also refer to the umpire, and the umpire makes the decision. But interestingly, the umpire himself or herself can also refer to the third umpire. And that third umpire will make the decision. Without probably going into the nitty-gritty of the game, it comes in two flavors. One, where you have one batsman who will be a part, let's say he's a part of a team of 10, as I said, and one batsman bats at a time. And let's say you have the other team, which is 10. Each bowler gets to bowl. Each person on the team who is fielding gets to bowl. And depending on the amount of overs that have been decided among the captains, let's say there are 10 overs and there are 5 players on the team, then each player who is fielding will get to bowl 2 overs. So we try to keep it even to make it seamless and easy to go about. So you have bowlers and you have batsmen. Now there's the other version of the game where 2 batsmen are at the crease at the same time. And when runs are scored, if the random chance is an even number, then that batsman continues to bat. Just like in a normal cricket game, if you run 2 runs, or if you hit 4 runs or 6 runs, you continue to bat. But if it is an uneven number, then your other batsman, your other partner, he gets to bat and continues to do that until he's out or until all the overs have been bowled. And then after that, as you know, the team switches and who was fielding will now bat. There is a scorecard that I developed, which is a manual card now, scorecard, but you can see the overs remaining, you can see the balls remaining, and you can see the score for each team. And at the end of the game, you know who gets the most runs win. Now, I piloted this game a couple of weeks ago with my close family and extended family. And we had people who came over. Some of them did not know anything about cricket. But at the end of the game, not only did they enjoy themselves immensely, but they were able to tell you what was in the ball, what was a dead ball. They were able to tell you all sorts of facets about cricket just because of this game. And people who were not au fait with cricket, those people have, well, based on the games that I had, everybody enjoyed themselves. At one point, we had a match which was 6 overs, and there were about 8 members on the team, and we got up to 88 runs.
So, but just for a bit though, you were suggesting then from what you said a short while ago that this could be a teaching tool then.
It is because I also have a glossary that comes with the game and also the rules of the game. The glossary outlines, well, as far as I'm concerned, most of the facets of cricket. My wife would tell you it was a dead ball, it was a leg bite, you know, it was a void. And these are terms that neither were they interested in before, but they have come to understand all of these terms in cricket. And as you said, it is a very good learning tool. But not only is it a learning tool, but it brings so much excitement with it that you will find that people who are not au fait with cricket will learn a lot about cricket and the intricacies that goes on with cricket.
Well, BJ,
Yes, sir.
I'm listening listening to all that you have said, my most obvious question, or my next obvious question, would be, who essentially is your target audience?
Right, that's a very good question. I had a meeting today with a lady from Export Barbados. Had some more information from her, and I would outline to her my target audience initially will be Barbados and then the region. But as you know, cricket is played as far as Australia.
Before you go any further, though, I wanted to be even more specific. I'm thinking about demographic.
Okay, but that's a good one because this game encompasses everybody. Whether you're old, I mean, one of the punchline that I'm going to be bringing to the game is cricket, board cricket, anywhere, anytime, anyone. Because anybody can play it. The old, the young, man, woman. I even had little boys that were, I think, 6, 7 years old playing the game. So the demographic, there's no boundaries. Anybody can play this game.
You also mentioned some hesitation about going electronic. Could you elaborate on that as to why?
Yeah, I had that meeting today and that came up again. Well, there are a number of factors that would, but first of all, let me say that in an electronic game, it is mainly catering for a virtual audience, which means that I can play with somebody in Australia and Pakistan or whatever, which is already a good. And I will not say that I will not look at that down the line, but I think this game is about bringing families together, bringing friends together. And although you have that online virtual experience, I would want to believe that initially I want to bring families and friends together. We just come out of COVID. Everybody is probably burnt out on the virtual space. People need, families and friends need to come together and relax and unwind in a game like this. But I will not rule it out because I know that the pitch could be far in terms of electronic. But also you must also remember that a game like this and me coming up with it is simple and cost effective. But when you do go that line, you have to look together a person who can develop a mobile app. You have to look at the resources, the finance, and that brings me to even another issue that I will raise now. Is the question is, why am I here? Not only am I here to promote the game and to bring it to your platform, but certainly I would like to know if I can get some endorsements, because initially where I want to go with this game is have a few, maybe a large number of pieces manufactured. Then you have to think about shipping, you have to think about distribution, all of those things. So when you, as with the meeting I had today, when you jump to suppose that with an electronic game, probably an electronic game might cost less as opposed to all of those manual and logistics that I've just mentioned. But I think initially, I love the idea of bringing families and friends together. I think that is the push that will be used initially, but it has potential to go very far, even on a virtual platform.
Well, Baswell, looks as though you've certainly come up with something that has a lot of potential. In many ways, as we talked about the educational component, the family component, and here is hoping that you can actually get great success in trying to push it and get it out there, because it definitely sounds as though it's something that we would want to have in circulation, so to speak. In terms of Wayne Holder, when he played cricket, he used to score some very important runs, he told me. But this sounds as though this is a game that eventually he can find his niche as a batsman.
This game is so much fun. I mean, I remember playing it, and you know, you are at least, let's say, first of all, I had a scorecard where you would write the name of the player and you write down how many runs the player scored. And then I moved away from that. I dumped that, and it's just a big scorecard all about teamwork. The total for the team, not individual.
Okay, much to Wayne's disappointment.
Right. So I moved away from the individual to the team, because I think West Indies still need to be focused on team and not too much individualistic performance. I made a decision to go that route.
Well, Philip, you know my vintage. I never played T20 cricket.
Fair enough.
Okay.
That's true. That's true.
This game may give a person like me an
Uh-huh.
opportunity to forge a career in the shortest format.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so. But Baswell, certainly thanks a lot for joining us on Anything Cricket Let's Talk. And we look forward to hearing more about you and the game and your progress in terms of marketing it and really getting it out there, certainly among locals to start with.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm really hoping that any person who is listening in on this podcast sometime, be it in the cricket fraternity or the other aspect of it, with marketing, finance, that, if you can come on board and help me out with marketing and maybe distribution, manufacturing, any help is needed right now.
Okay, we look forward to that happening.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, BJ.
All right, thanks, Ben.
Well, look who's dropped in, man. A guy by the name of Kevin Wickham. And one of our young upcoming, well, I guess you can use the term rising stars. I think that's an adequate way to describe him.
Very much so, actually, Philip, because that is the name given to the West Indies age level cricket competition, and a name associated with the likes of Kevin Wickham. When you hear more about him, you would understand why.
Yeah, I would think so. So, Kevin, welcome to Anything Cricket. Let's talk.
Thanks.
Not the first time that we've chatted, but certainly the first time that we've been able to get
I didn't hear that.
I said it's not the first time that we've chatted, but the first time that we've actually been able to get you to get you on camera, so to speak. But we chatted before, and of course, there's a bit of history that we share, even though not at the same time. That history being your school, Grantley Adams. But
actually, I thought you were going to mention Empire, Philip.
Well, I said history. And I suppose
history is being made.
History is being made. So the history goes even further back than that. So very good to have you. In fact, I heard you, Kevin, bigging up your coach at Grantley Adams, Mr. Green, in a recent exchange you had with another media personality. So tell us about yourself and Mr. Green and Grantley Adams, and how how your cricket has been coming along the last couple of years or so.
When I first went to Grantley Adams, I was first introduced to cricket at the second division level. It was under 13, but my coach allowed me to play second division, which I don't think the other under 13 did play under the second division at that time. It was a little tough going at first. Obviously, I was under 13 playing against big under 19 boys, so obviously the cricket was ahead of me at that time. The coach still gave me the opportunity to play. to get the experience. Obviously, you will have to see something in me that I could play at that level at that time. So I was thanks for the opportunity. I'll just see it.
So what really would have happened before that that got you to that level at such a young age? You were playing in primary school, maybe?
If I may add on to your question, Philip, just to say, Kevin, you play the game with a kind of passion. I'm asking you to follow up on Philip's question. Where did that passion and that uh, affinity for the game come? Or when did it come?
I would say it came from primary school. I always used to see the boys playing. I always see the like football at the time. I always just see the boys playing, so I just used to go and play. One day, my coach, Mr. Barnett, Barry Barnett, saw me playing on the hard court, and then I think they had a game like 2 days after, and then he asked me why he didn't used to play cricket for his primary school. So I said, obviously, I did like football at that time. So he said, why not try both? And then from there, he kept playing cricket, and obviously, cricket worked in the battlefield than football.
Which primary school was this?
More firmer. So I then advanced to Grant Island Morris School. It was given, as soon as I went there, I was given the opportunity to play, obviously, as I just said, at the highest school division, which is second division. So it was basically the experience. I thought that growing up around, like the Sean boys and Shamarh boys who played at higher level at that time, and they both see something in me too. They always encourage me to play at that time. So it was only a matter of time for me to go and play and back my skills.
So this is in your neighborhood? Because are these guys were at school with you as well?
In my neighborhood.
Okay, you said Kamari boys, who you know, and who's the other person?
Tashawn boys.
Okay, all right.
So what neighborhood is this, if you ask? What district is this that we're speaking about? Which parish?
St. George. St. George North. My house is located in Roseland, but I mainly be outside in Bel St. George. So that's where I really learned cricket.
And I can tell Philip and the public that I also came across you in a very important responsible role, playing some tape ball cricket and that big Rose Village tournament where you were captain of the village side.
Yeah. That village team, the village team was just Sheriff, obviously, who the host of the tournament. He asked me if I could field a team. So I was like, yeah, got a few fellas. I asked Shamarh to play. He did play a few when he could. The team like Nakirika Duggan, the Saint Tashawn boys, the Shaman boys, Tyreek, Amar, Azario Wave. So there are a lot of boys who are not advanced as me or Kamar, but they could play. They play at different levels, various levels in reaching second division, intermediate. They were not go Harper too. So
it seems as though you have a real support team then. People who have your interests at heart and encourage you to play and so on, and monitor your development.
I think we placed third in that from second.
You went to the final? No, you didn't.
I think we played second.
No, you didn't go to the final. You went to the semis.
No, we went semis because we lost in semis.
Right, I think I remember that.
Talking about semis and losing and finals and all that. Your most recent outing, let's say, that has attracted attention was last weekend when you represented the Empire Club against who were you playing against? Wildy. And you defeated them in the semi-final. Unfortunately, I was assigned to another game, so I didn't get to see. But from listening to the commentary, I got the impression that you were totally in command at Bearfield and had everyone in awe of your performance.
Yeah, I would say that When I first started batting, it was a little tough. I wasn't scoring or getting as much singles. I batted a lot of dot balls in the first period. Obviously, my partner Jabbar Yard, he called me midway in the pitch and talked to me. Said if I'm struggling from that end, get a single, and he would try to do the scoring from that end. That I did. And he took a lot. Honestly, he took a lot of pressure off of me from the quarterfinals where we both score hundreds. He took a lot of pressure off me where he obviously his game is he played freely. So he bat normal. So it was like he playing his normal role and that was taking a lot of pressure off of me so I could play my normal role. And I think that worked well for us in the quarterfinals and semifinals.
What's your normal role? How would you describe your normal role?
I every boy that know me know is a stroke player. I'm not the one to hit the biggest hit. I mainly take around ones and twos. I could hit it odd boundary. I could muscle the ball if needed, but my main role is to just work around bat as deep as possible.
I mean, you saw the innings on Sunday, so I'm sure that you could appreciate even more what Kevin is saying.
Well, yes, Kevin talked about not muscling the ball and hitting the biggest sixes. Well, I can tell you, he hit some big sixes. Look at him. You don't see a lot of muscle. So you know what it was. It was exquisite timing.
So he was correct. He wasn't muscling the ball. He was timing it and
timing it
knocking it over the boundary.
magnificently, and the ball was going far. The sixes were not baby sixes that just dribbled over the line. I remember the other fielders and the spectators having to fetch the ball out of a few properties. I remember one went straight into a gallery where I had just left a guy sitting on the wall looking at the cricket, and I was worried about him, And then there was another one subsequently. There was also a reverse sweep, Kevin. I think with 6 runs required, after you were really flowing, you will call it like the engine was purring, and he played a reverse sweep with 6 runs required.
I remember listening to that on commentary.
No, what made me that shot special, Kevin? Is this something that you practice? Because a reverse sweep is something that I never played. It didn't exist at the time when I played cricket. But seeing you guys play it now, is this something you practice, or is this something that you just happened naturally?
Yeah, obviously preparing for the past World Cup and for our senior team trials, obviously a lot of drills being done in the net. Even the reverse sweep, as you mentioned just now. The reverse sweep is something I really look at a lot. The reverse sweep and the normal sweep. So I do a lot of drills on those two shots because to me they're two of the hardest shots for me to play. Although I like playing the normal sweep. So I focus on playing that more, and execution is in the game. I just think that once I'm in the right frame of mind and I stick to the basic, that it's not really a hard shot for me to play because obviously I practice it a lot.
You also mentioned about the World Cup. Now, everybody might not know, but you would have represented the West Indies in the Youth World Cup, the ICC Under 19 World Cup held right here in the Caribbean only earlier this year. And with some distinction, could you enlighten us to some of the highlights of that outing?
Obviously, as I just said, there was a lot of preparation, even during the COVID period where a lot of teams weren't training due to the pandemic and the lockdown and thing. And obviously, training for World Cup, we were permitted with permission to train. So I wasn't one of the boys to really be like just relax. I was out training hard. I picked up an injury during training. I was out for like 5 months. I worked really hard to get back to full fitness, and I think that it all pays off.
Well, I know of that injury. And of course, that injury would have hampered your chances of making the West Indies team that went to England. I think when that team was over in England, you were recovering or healing from that injury. Were you at any point daunted and feeling that, shoot, I'm not going to make this now because of this injury?
Well, at a certain time, I thought I couldn't make the team. Then the team was announced I was a reserve after he came back. And I was like, for me, I did well because I actually recovered before the time schedule. So I was doing like extra therapy and things like that, obviously to get back to full fitness before the workout. Then when I recover, they had the last set of trials before the team got fit. And I did fairly well. Obviously, I wasn't fit in the final 14. I was a reserve.
But then when the opportunity came, what was the feeling like when you got that call that you were going to have to join the side as a replacement for a player who had taken them?
I just think that I know I had a big role to play, knowing the players, because I know the players that were out with COVID. So me looking at the team, knowing that obviously my role as a short player at the time of the cricket ball will really come in handy in the team. So I just went and made my best performance.
And then it came. And then it came. Century. Tell us about that. Against?
The century, really, it was really a nice feeling knowing that I could go to a worldwide tournament and score a century amongst the best under 19 cricketers in world cricket at that time.
And who was it against? Who was it against?
Zimbabwe.
It was against Zimbabwe. And what were the circumstances? I mean, when you went into bat, for instance, what was the score like?
The score wasn't much. I think that Fernando, he got out in the first over for that. So basically, I opened the batting. So it was a similar situation to the semifinals where the quarterfinals where Hakeem Perryman got out early. The semifinals, Shamarh Brooks got out early. So for me, I just got myself in a frame of mind like when I batted at number 3, to expect anything. I could be in early, I could be in late. So I just don't want to get too relaxed when batsmen batting for a certain amount of time. I just try to keep my body and the blood flowing because, as I say, when I first go to the crease, sometimes I'd be a little lazy. So I just try to keep my blood flowing. As you see, people will see it sometimes I look nervous, but it don't be that I'm nervous, it be that I just don't want to let my body cool down and get too relaxed. Then when I go to bat, I know got to get back warm and things. So I think it's just a routine for me that much people don't understand, but it's for me to understand mainly.
Well, you made a success of the recovering from the injury, coming into the team as a reserve, an adverse situation. There's another story, though, that the story that brought you to national prominence, if I may call that, as far as cricket is concerned. I'm going to go back to that morning and tell me if I have it right. You got up this Saturday and you were supposed to play for Grantley Adams on that particular day.
No, I wasn't supposed to play for Grantley Adams. I was supposed to play for division for Barbados Super Law School.
So you had gotten the call. So you had gotten the call ahead of time that you were drafted into the first division team.
Yes.
First division, not elite.
Not elite.
Oh, right. So you were supposed to play in the first division for Barbados Youth.
Yes, please.
So I'm telling you the story as I heard it now. You left home to go to play for the first division team.
Yes, please. On my way to Lodge.
Right. You got a call not to go to Lodge, go to Empire to play with the elite team, a last minute reserve again.
That's it.
That is the story. You
That's
got to Empire to play for the Barbados Youth in the Elite versus the prestigious Empire Club.
That's it.
Well, at that time, you were also known as a bit of a leg spin bowler, but would I take it for granted that you were a batsman who bowled something, who bowled some?
Yes, I was a batsman who bowled like
Who bowled some leg spin. So, what led to you being sent at number 8? Your very first innings in the elite competition, you were sent to bat at number 7 or number 8. You confirm for me. Was it 7, 8?
number 8.
You were sent to bat at number 8. Of course, you're not accustomed to batting that low.
No, please.
Right. So tell Philip and the rest of the audience what happened from that number 8 position.
Well, obviously it was my first game at that level, at highest level in Barbados. So I wasn't really fretting about where about that. Obviously, I wasn't expecting to go into a team and just bat at number 3, straight off the head like that. So I just waited my turn. Obviously, it worked in my favor. I have Shamarh Brooks who scored 40 odd. He batted at 9, I think. He batted really well, supported me really well. And
so you got
a fantastic moment.
You got your audience in suspense because you haven't told them how many you scored.
I scored 109.
109.
109.
How old were you then?
6. Yes, 15.
15. You're 15 years old. And would you consider that though as the platform from where your cricket career has taken off to the point that you have gained national attention? Now you are now a known senior cricketer in Barbados?
Yes. Yes, they really
Philip, you were about to ask.
Yeah, because he played is interesting because he made that start, if you will, at the elite level against Empire. And I don't know if the Empire players at that time decided, look, this is not gonna happen to us again. We got to get him on our side. But it's interesting that he's now representing Empire. So I just wanted to find out how that came about, 1, and 2, what is it like playing for a club like Empire that has so much that word of game in history? And not only history, but if you look at Empire as it exists now, still a number of players of national prominence, if you will. You've got the Rustin Chase, Jamel Workin, Justin Graves, Kevin Stout. I can go on. Of course, Jason Haynes, the former Barbados captain, is the manager coach of the team. What is it like? First of all, how did you come about? How did it come about that you were playing for Empire, Kevin? And what is your response to the whole idea of playing among all these iconic players, if you will, at the local level?
From the first time I played at Empire, I always got a good feedback from the club members and the supporters. Obviously, I played for Empire before I played against Empire in that elite game. I played on the 15 there. I was training there. Jason Hill was my personal coach. And the club, I feel like the environment, people say that it's a small ground and thing, but it's not. I don't look at the size of the ground. I look at the environment that I be in. So the environment is very good. So I would encourage, I wouldn't say that I would want to pour it down on people, other clubs or not, but I think that I had a very good opportunity playing at the Empire Cricket Club. That is why I went there.
Okay. So when you say the environment is good, though, any specifics really? You mean the players encourage you a lot? What do you mean by the environment?
I mean, like, during this season, when they first started, during the T20, early in the 50th over, I wasn't getting the scores that I was looking for. And there weren't no bad remarks, no comments, no bad comments. Obviously, spectators will be spectators as usual. They will get a couple of odd things.
Well, some people consider spectators for rather hailers. When you're good, they're happy, and when you're not good, they don't want to know you. That's sadly that often happens.
But people know, your spectators know the expectations of you. Well, in prayer, I never really had no bad feedback from the spectators, even when I was doing bad. Like, as for instance, early in the season, I wasn't getting
That's
scored.
good.
So, and they were still behind me. They were just telling me to keep my head up, keep training, that scores will come. Obviously, I was getting out soft. And as I just said, there were no bad remarks, no bad comments, or nothing like that. So,
if you're getting support from the dressing
all
room and from the spectators, I don't think you can want any more than that.
dressing room, spectators, just the environment alone is very nice.
But you talked about some of the players though. I mean, you talked about the players who in your vicinity, if you will, your neighborhood, who and your friends who've been supportive. But beyond that, at the national level or above, out of the recognized players that said you interact with, who are some of the players who you tend to take the cue from? Not necessarily or not only in terms of advice that they may give you, but in terms of watching them and maybe learning something about how they play that could be useful to you.
Uh, I usually have conversations with Shivo. Obviously, he's my idol, my favorite cricketer.
Okay.
Even Craig Bradford, who's my captain now in this Legends Cup. I mean, he normally have conversations too. So I look up to those.
Any iconic players from the past, though, that would have captured your imagination, who you might try to emulate?
Not really. I wouldn't. Not really.
There's
There's
a player from the club who I've heard a comment and I think I see the justification in it that some people think that you tend to look something like him in your stroke play. Have you heard that a lot, or it's just one or two people who may have mentioned that to me?
Yeah, I hear a lot of people tell me every time they see me played, I just felt like Roston Chase batting. So I wouldn't deny, if everyone could say that, I wouldn't deny that it's true. So
is that by chance? I mean, do you watch him a lot, or is just happens that way?
Not really watch him a lot, but I mean, like, playing alongside him. Obviously, he's an international cricketer, so there's a lot of feedback from me, Jamal Workan, Justin Grave, who's always on me. Wolfie Hurdle, he's the captain right now. As much as I may think that he'd be hard on me, I still believe that Wolfie is trying to better my ability to score runs, and he's always like on to me. So even if I do something wrong, he's on to me all the time. So I won't say
when you
that.
say on to you, you mean when you say that these guys are on to you, Kofi, and I think you mentioned Justin. You mean that they try to keep you in check and try to make sure that you do the right thing.
Yes,
that's what you mean.
Yes.
Okay.
So
you talk about the Legends Cup, though, which essentially is about the trial stage as far as presenting one's credentials for the national for the Super 50 competition, which comes up quite shortly. Are you seeing yourself though as a prospective player going all the way to play for the Barbados pride in the regional Super 50 Cup this season? You think you're ready for that for that move?
Yes, please. I think I'm ready. I don't. Others may think not, but me personally, I feel in a good space, batting wise. So I think that if the opportunity is given to me, that I would really put up my hand.
I guess you can say being selected for the Legends Cup is that opportunity. No, you know what you've got to do. You know, the selectors are not going to select you because you think you're ready. So you know exactly what you want to do. Would you tell us what you would want to do?
Obviously, everybody know what you would want to do is score runs, and
I want to hear it coming from you.
Score runs and keep my name in the Euro team. So that when push comes to shove, like you may look at this person, this next person, like this body got this body did this for the season. And I just want my name to be like that one that's always above in terms of personality, run scoring, when they go back to feeling, bowling, the body got this skill if needed. So I really, honestly, I work really hard on my feeling because I think everyone has that job of feeling. So you may be able to bat or both, but you can't feel. And that's what everybody as a team do. Feel. Everybody don't bowl, everybody don't bat. Everybody feel.
Well,
So I
a
think that
recent buzz.
feeling is a very, very important part of cricket.
A recent buzzword in cricket in the region, this is as far as even the West Indies level is concerned, is fitness. How do you go about preparing yourself and getting yourself ready? As a matter of fact, I should ask, how important do you see that too?
Well, I really think fitness is play a very big part in cricket. Obviously, batting and bowling requires fitness because if you're not fit, you can't bowl for long periods. You can't feel for long periods. You're not going to bat for long periods because you get tired, you can burn up, and then you can do obviously something stupid. So I just think fitness is a really key aspect of the game still. So I pay a lot of attention to that too.
What is your fitness regime like, Kevin? What kind of work can we expect to see going? Let's describe a typical week. You play cricket on weekends mainly, and then you've got your practice work and the likes. But what would be a normal week as far as fitness preparation is concerned?
Normal week for me will be like I would do gym on Mondays, then obviously training with the senior team at the Oval during the week. So I'll be like doing drills. There's certain days we do drills, certain days we hit the net, certain days we have the trainer there. So it's really a schedule that the trainer there's a platform like we know we have this day and that the next day. So we just have to prepare our minds and
So you're
think
Barbados Cricket Association contracted player. What is the level of your contract?
no, I'm not contracted with the Barbados thing. I'm contracted with the West Indies Emerging.
Oh, so a developmental contract.
Yes.
Right, which entails that you report for duty at Kensington Oval at specific times that are given.
Yes.
Right. So Philip, over to you.
Well, Kevin, you helped the Empire side into the final, and I imagine you're looking forward to that as another big occasion along with your participation in the Legends Cup.
Yes, obviously the Legends Cup is before the final, so I will try to take as much practice as I could out of the Legends Cup. Obviously, the Legends Cup is based with the best 50-over cricketers in Barbados based on stats this season. So I believe if I could be one of the top performers in the Legends Cup, I don't see why I cannot. I don't see why I cannot be one of the top batsmen in Barbados.
Okay, well, that's certainly a good goal to set yourself, and here is wishing you all the best, Kevin, in the Legends Cup and also in the final of the local 50 over competition. Of course, I think Wayne is probably thinking to himself that my wishing you well is also wishing Empire well, because I think he has his own views on my association with that outstanding club.
Well, you know, Bob Marley had a sign that had a line that went, "Guiltiness rests on their conscience." I say
well, nothing to be guilty about. Maybe there's a lot to be proud about. Anyhow, thanks, Kevin. And as I said, all the best to you moving forward. Legends Cup, final of the 50 over, and beyond that as well. Nice having you on the show.
Best of luck, clap.
Cheers.
Well, one of my favorite people is in town. Always good to see Ayana Holder. And of course, many discussions going around over the last week or so since the announcement of the West Indies team for the T20 World Cup. I haven't heard much from Wayne and Ayana in terms of their joy or happiness, surrounding or following that event. But I'm going to start with Ayana because Wayne, I always say ladies first. So welcome again, Ayana, to Anything Cricket. Let's talk. And first of all, we're going to jump right in. Your take on the World Cup team announced recently.
Good night, Philip. Always nice to be here. If I had to use an expression to describe the reaction to the West Indies World Cup squad, it would be surprised. But a pretty pleasant surprise. I think the most notable inclusion is Yannick Carrier, the leg break bowler, who a couple months ago made his international debut against New Zealand in the ODIs. And when you look at the T20 international format, even franchise cricket, you realize that the leggy is a pretty impactful bowler. You think of the likes of Rashid Khan, Tabriz Shamsi, Yuzvendra Chahal. Those guys are very impactful in the format. And it's a brave decision, but I think that it shows what the lack of planning and preparation can do, because some years ago when Samuel Badri was the number one bowler, we haven't really had another spin bowler at the caliber of Samuel Badri, and it will be interesting to see how the young man goes. He had a pretty okay outing in ODIs, and I think the selectors just chose to go with their gut on this one. I was a bit disappointed to see Shamarh Brooks left out. If there are any reserves named, I will hope that he'd be one, because I think he's a stabilizing factor. Maybe not as impactful as you would like him to be in terms of really upping the ante when it's necessary, but I think that he might feel a little hard having been excluded. And Romario Shepherd, unfortunately, I think that he probably just missed the bus because of the options available in the likes of Jason Holder, Alzari Joseph, or Ben McCoy, and even Raymond Riffer, who I think has been working, toiling very hard for a very long time. And it's about time that he has gotten a chance too. So a bit of balance. I think some people will be a bit sad, but I think that there's some joy as well.
Let me ask you a question, Ayana. The area of spin, to be just dependent on Akil Hussain and Yannick Correa, very, very inexperienced. You mentioned some real names as leggies, and I think somebody might cite you for sacrilege to mention the name Yannick Correa in the same sentence as Yuzvendra Chahal and Shamsi and Zampa and those kind of guys. But do you think that that the area of spin is definitely? But I think what you say when I tell you that I think that is an area in which the team is very, very weak.
Well, the team is very weak because I don't think that we have.
I wasn't talking about the team. I was talking about the area of spin.
Yes, I understand what you mean. The team of spin.
Oh.
The team of spin, I think, will be inexperienced because, as I said, we haven't really planned in that area. Hayden Walsh had been playing for quite a long couple of years now, but he hasn't been very impactful. Roston Chase was injured and he's just coming back. I'm a little bit disappointed with his returns in the CPL, and the selectors just said that, well, he's coming back and they don't think he's ready. And I think he bowled well a couple nights ago against TKR, but I just wanted to see a bit more, a claim, just like, putting up your hand and announcing yourself to the selectors so that you don't have to be discussed. So I am not saying that Yannick Carrier is a match winner. I'm just talking about the skill of a leggy and the impact that they can bring to the format of the game. West Indies, however, due to the resources available, they just decided to go with that option. Some might say it's a gamble, but we can only see. And I think that the pace balances the spin, because if you're going to win matches, I think that is going to be through our pacers.
One of you mentioned that with Korea, they probably went on a whim. What was the word you used? Somebody said the selectors probably, I don't know if you said on a whim, but what you apparently meant was that they just decided to take a chance with him. And Ayana, I smiled when you said that it showed a lack of planning, because I don't think that, I mean, I've known you a long time, but we've been associated with this show now for a good few years. And you may have said things that have been as bang on, but you've never been more bang on. It's Yannick Correa, okay, if you've got a young player, let's say an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, or even an older player, but who is now emerging, and you had taken a chance to go with him, to me, that's going on taking a chance, going on a limb, whatever. You've chosen a guy who's been playing cricket in the Caribbean for ages. And I mean, just before the World Cup, you pick him for the 50-over competition. And apparently on that, based on what the chief selector said, you take a chance to send him to a World Cup after you have been working with Hayden Walsh Jr. for 3-4 years. I'm not saying Yannick Correa would not go to the World Cup and be the player of the World Cup, but part of the problem with West Indies cricket, why we've been going around in circles for about 20 years, is that we don't seem to want to base our forward movement on our success on sound planning. It's like it's guesswork. How do you pick Correa without any practice in any of the games that we've been playing in the last few months, and just at the last hour, you dismiss Walsh and you pick Correa? Boggles my mind. But it doesn't, I'm sure those who believe that, the next successful thing is going to happen by chance will be happy with that. But I believe in planning, preparation, and things of that nature.
I personally don't have a major problem with Correa being in the squad.
I don't have a problem with it being in the squad. I have a problem with the I don't know, off the cuff way we do things.
My problem though is that with him being the only alternative. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously
that makes it even worse, Vin. And actually, I didn't want to line from what he was saying, but that is what I really wanted to get in as well. That correct. The fact that you've had all these other guys that you tried over the past several years, you've tossed all of them away, and you're going with Hossein quite naturally. Hossein has he has earned that right to be the leading spin bowler in the camp. He's been well supported. I think you've got to give a lot of credit to Kyron Pollard. Pollard certainly pushed him a lot. He had every opportunity. Can't say the same for Walsh, but I have no problem with Hossein. But what about all the others who've been tried? They've all been just tossed away, and you're going with your gut. We're going to rebuild West Indies cricket around somebody's gut. I've got a problem with that.
Well, the question remains, though, that as are selectors allowed a gut selection?
Of course, Fidel Edwards bowling in the nets at Kensington. I think Tino Best had a similar experience, and there've been others. Michael Holden just had a handful of I think 16 first class wickets when he went off. And those were the days when you had to really but he had 13 of them clean bowl. To my mind, that's going with the gut. But when the guy has been playing cricket for the last, I don't know, 8 years or seasons or however long he's been playing, and all of a sudden you just decide that you're going to put him in a World Cup team, to my mind, that's not going with the gut. That's just gambling, which is a different thing. It's a gamble. That's like buying a lotto ticket.
I'm saying that judging by the words of the chief selector, you know, it is one of those selections that goes with what he would consider his cricket sense.
I understand what you're saying. So I was differentiating between that and the others that I mentioned, the Michael Holt and the Fidel, was all those. To my mind, that's their cricket sense, because these are guys who would not have necessarily been around for a long time, and you've seen them, you see something in them, and you take a chance with them. I don't know that this is what we are saying here.
Well, the chief selector talked about how excellently he presented themselves in the 18 versus Bangladesh, and that earned him a player in the West Indies ODI side, and he was equally impressed with those.
Did he do anything in the 18 that Ken Walsh hasn't done in the past? In other words, we get players who come and they perform well, and we get excited. It's the next best thing. We put them in the team, and then we don't seem to know how to bring them on from there. And then when they don't set the world on fire after a year or two, we get rid of them and we keep going. And we've been doing that for the last 20 years.
We got to move on.
We've been doing it for the last 20 years.
But we're going to move on. But my discussion is not about Korea, you know. My discussion is about the chief selector. The chief selector and his group selected Korea. They would have had their reasons. I'm saying, do they have
their reasons?
Are they given the right? Are we going to allow them? Are we going to allow them the right because of the what we trust their knowledge?
You know where that you can stop them,
right? But
we have to allow them.
No, what I'm saying is, do we trust their knowledge? Do we?
I don't trust the knowledge anymore.
Their sense, their perception.
I don't trust the knowledge anymore than I trusted over the last 20 years when we've been going around in circles.
Right. So we move on. So we move on from that. Another selection that a point Ayana made. She talked about Roston Chase and being injured and not really presenting a very strong case in the CPL up to the point when the team was selected. Of course, we know of Roston Chase's body of work even before then. But then how do you juxtapose that with the selection of Sheldon Cottrell, who similarly would have been out of the team for quite a while, would have been injured, is making a comeback, clearly lacking practice and lacking match performances, but yet he's in the team of Roston Chase. So, Ayana, how do you explain that?
Well, you told me before that I can mention Yannick Carrier and Rashid Khan and Yuzvendra Chahal. And to be quite honest, I think that Sheldon Cottrell and Roston Chase are basically at two different ends. And when I say that, I mean that Roston Chase, the bowler, is an evolving element of his game. I think that is an area that he probably has to reinvent himself. And if Sheldon Cottrell had been fully fit, he would play the entire summer. I am not sure that Roston Chase would have done the same in the off-spinner role for the West Indies.
I'm sure. I'm sure. That he would not have.
And I think that the team is probably looking for that new ball bowler to get wickets in the power play, and Sheldon Cottrell has done that pretty well. And I think that that's why he has regained his place in the side.
Then I think what I take from what Ayana is saying, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, is that prior to his injury, Sheldon Cottrell would have been a fixture in the side, playing a particular role and playing it successfully. Whereas Roston, as well as he has done from time to time, would not be considered a fixture. Am I reading you correctly, Ayana?
Yeah, I think that Roston Chase was still trying to cement his place.
Okay, right. So we're at the same place. But to elaborate, or to say my 2 cents worth on what Wayne asked, and to elaborate on the comment I made before when he said that I could answer that question. You said you don't know if he would have been a consistent member of the team had he been fit. And I interjected, I said, but I do know. And I do know that he would not have been. And how do I know that? Because I'm not reading minds or anything like that. Because when Roston Chase was left out of the T20 side, having been the leading bowler on either side in the T20 series in India back in February, which is the last time West Indies played T20 cricket before playing the home matches against Bangladesh and so on in T20. And having picked up 6 wickets at just under 5 runs and over in those 3 matches against solid international competition, if he could, and he was not left out because he was injured. So if he was dropped after that performance, Ayana, it's obvious that he would not have been, that he was not seen as someone who would be a staple in the side during our domestic exchanges over the last several months. And I will go further. And while I agree that he has not had excellent returns prior to the last T20 game in the CPL, I don't think, having done so well against India of all people, in India, I don't think there's anything that Ross and Chase could have done in the CPL that would necessarily have ensured he would be picked for the World Cup. Because what more would you want a guy to do? A guy who has done well against India. He's your leading bowler in the competition. He's even more successful than anybody that's on the Indian side who would have been bowling in their own conditions. Yet he's dropped. Now, what could he do in a CPL to top that? So I don't think Ross and Chase is in the plan of the current selectors.
Honestly, though, Philip, there are different elements of the conversation that we need to tap into, because Roston Chase was not dropped because of the bowling in India, but rather because of his batting in Test cricket, as well his overall form.
I was talking about the T20
if the selectors had made an error
Mm-hmm.
in trying to correct the batting of Roston, just asking him to play 4-day cricket, then that's a different discussion. Because
okay, I'm a bit confused. My comments about Roston Chase, all the comments I made about Roston Chase, and even if you understand this, will make it clear for our viewers. All my comments about Roston Chase in the last 5-10 minutes relate only to T20 cricket. Only to T20 cricket. It has nothing to do with his test form or even
I take that point, but I just say that we need to clarify the reason why he did not.
I don't know the reason why he was dropped.
T20 series that
I don't know.
It is because the management took the decision that they wanted Roston Chase to play the longer format of the game to work on his batting. If that is an error,
if that's what you were saying just now, it means I didn't quite understand that. So that's why I throw it back at you to get clarity. Now I understand what you're saying. So you're saying that you have this on good, that this is what you believe, or this is what you...
No, I could probably go back and look for the press conference on it, right. But that's what was said. Roston Chase was asked to play in the 4-day series. That's why he didn't go on the white ball.
Which 4-day series is this?
The tournament.
I'm getting a bit confused. There was no 4-day tournament.
Yeah, you're going to put some.
There was a 4-day tournament.
There was no 4-day tournament going on when the guys were playing the T20 series.
You need to give us some specifics, Ayana, the timing, the actual timing.
In West Indies went to Netherlands, and then West Indies went to Pakistan.
But those are not the tours I was talking
left
about.
At home.
What we went to the Netherlands and played
left at home.
But we went to the Netherlands to play what sort of cricket?
We played ODIs in Netherlands.
So that's not relevant to Ross and Chase, because I'm not talking about ODIs and Ross and Chase. I'm talking about the T20 matches that were played in the Caribbean after the Netherlands and all that. The T20 matches that were played just within the last. We played Bangladesh. Who else did we play in the Caribbean? That was after. There was no 4-day
Bangladesh. We played India.
And there was no 4-day cricket at that time. 4-day cricket had ended, and that was all finished. So there was no 4-day cricket to be played at that point. The only cricket that was being played at that point was 3-day cricket, because after Roston Chase had been dropped, Roston Chase actually continued to play for Empire in the club competition. The 4-day competition had ended long ago.
So during the tour, the tour to Europe, to the Netherlands, and to Pakistan.
Not talking about any of that.
Yeah, where was Roston Chase?
Did they play T20s there?
The Caribbean. But
they didn't play T20s. I'm only talking about T20s, guys.
My view is that based on the T20 performances, I believe Roston Chase could have also made the ODI team.
Okay, that's a totally different point.
Because the selectors took the decision for Roston Chase to play in the 4-day competition, he did not go on that white ball tour. Then after that, he was injured. Well, so
Ayana, that is a message that has been put out there. Roston Chase was not injured when he was dropped from the T20 side. So let's leave that there, because that's a fact. Okay, I saw Roston Chase playing cricket fully fit after he'd been dropped. So that's not a debate.
But I would say this though, and this is to all cricketers.
Mm-hmm.
I am a bit disappointed when we see cricketers have a good year or two, and the third year when they're really under it, you know, and people are saying they should have been selected. He's been on field and stuff like that. Then they come and they don't really they don't claim.
And this is the same thing I'm talking about. This is the same thing I alluded to, Ayana. And this is the only reason why we're going around in circles. Because this is exactly what is happening now to Hayden Walsh. How long will it take before it happens to Correa? So something is missing somewhere, because we're not able to get guys to be consistent over a long period of time. So I think there's something that maybe needs to be investigated there to find out why that is. Because it's not just Roston Chase, it's not just Hayden Walsh Jr. This has been a problem for quite some time. In fact, if I ask you to name two batsmen who have been, let's say, who can be world rated since the retirement of Chanderpaul. I think Chanderpaul is the last top player we had who retired. Gale stopped playing virtually before that, and so did Lara. I don't know if you could name, I know you can name two in Test cricket, because they're just not there. I don't know if you would want to identify in the limited overs game, Shea Hope in limited overs for sure. You know, so our players are not going on. They're not going on, and that's something that needs to be looked at.
Another name that Ayana would have mentioned in a positive light, or in a way she would have preferred to see, was Shamarh Brooks. Shamarh Brooks, who has proven that he can make runs at the international level. He has demonstrated those skills in all the various formats. My take on the selection of this team tells me that whatever claims he had to play would have been dismissed once we decided that we were going to play Evan Lewis. Lewis for Brooks.
I don't know if Ayana wants to talk about that one first.
Well, it's a straight case. Evan Lewis, we know his capabilities. Again, very disappointed in the circumstances surrounding his, I guess, absence in the summer series.
Unavailability.
Unavailability in the summer series. But I don't think that it was really a huge debate. I think the guys probably glad to have back Evan Lewis, only it came at the expense of Shamarh Brooks. And some persons might tell you that Evan Lewis can play a cover drive like Shamarh Brooks, but it's just the way the game goes.
Well, no, I mean, just look at the record. We know, I could imagine as a selector how tempted or how tempting it would have been to include an Evan Lewis once he was available. But the circumstances surrounding Evan Lewis over the period of time since the last World Cup, within the last year or so, since the last T20 World Cup, I don't think that Evan Lewis did himself any great favors, and showed the kind of commitment to the cause of West Indies cricket to get rid of a player like Shamarh Brooks, who has been there for you all through and all along and has not failed.
You mean has not failed at West Indies level?
Yes.
I think the question would be in terms of the T20. We think in T20 now. Sometimes we get caught up and we combine the formats, but we got to keep them separate because the requirements of one is not the same as another. So we're talking T20. And if you're talking T20 and Shamarh Brooks, I think Shamarh Brooks had a pretty decent outing having been, to my surprise, not that he disapproved, but to my surprise, brought into the T20 setup a few months back. He came into the T20, I think it was Pakistan, maybe that was last year, when there was an issue with players being unavailable because, in the height of COVID. And I think he openly batted and he had a good score too. And I thought at that point, he was someone that you could have looked at. But then when the players were available again, he was tossed away. And so I was a bit surprised then when he came back, into the setup. And since he's come back in the setup, he's not done bad. He's done much better in the one-day internationals. Last I checked, he was our leading scorer for the year. I haven't checked in the last couple of weeks, but he's done very well in the one-day internationals. Statistically, maybe not as well in the T20, speaking off the top of my head, but he's done well. I think, however, that he has probably not done well enough to be an automatic selection. And therefore, having not put together a whole lot during the CPL, I think that really would be his downfall. Had he put together some good scores, and not even necessarily as good as Johnson Charles, but had he been more dominant in the CPL, I suspect the selectors then would have at least had a clear option to Evan Lewis if it came down to one or the other.
Philip talks about the CPL, Ayana. How important was the CPL performance in the selection of this team, this unit?
I think that the CPL probably just made the selectors think a little bit. So that's why you see there are a couple of persons who did not feature in the summer that have been excluded. For example, the same Ross, Shamarh Brooks, Johnson Charles coming in, Evan Lewis coming back, Raymond Reefer coming in, who has been having, I think, a very solid year overall. And Johnson Charles, I was very surprised because I didn't think that I would see a Johnson Charles play for the West Indies again, but here he is. He's come, dominated, and the selectors have chosen him. And one of the things that I think that we need to really emphasize in the T20 format is that of match winners and impact players, because in a T20 match, it looks really good if you made 50, but the team lost. Then where's the balance? There's another situation where
that usually means that you've done your job and somebody else hasn't done theirs.
Another guy could come and make 20 from 6 balls, and no one score a half century, and you win the game. That's just the way how T20 cricket goes, and that's why I think that's.
But Ayana, for that guy to score 20 off 6 balls and win the game, somebody would have had to get the team to the point where you only needed 20 off 6, or where that contribution of 20 off 6. It didn't start there. He's obviously come in at a time when you needed to up the tempo, maybe at the end or at some point, and score 20 off 6. That's fantastic. But you could be pretty sure that somebody would have scored a 50 before that, or maybe a couple of guys got 30s and 40s. So really understand what you mean.
And it's the
you gotta
couple
be careful.
of guys.
You gotta be careful not to just say the last thing that happened. You gotta be careful.
There are a couple of guys who got 30s or 40s who made a different impact on the game that led to that. So
it's a whole team. It's a whole team thing.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, Ayana. Do you see a difference between, let's say, performance and impact?
Yes, there's a difference between performance and impact in the T20 format of the game because of the nature of it.
Let's get an example, either hypothetical or for real, so that our viewers can really get the point that you're making. An example, either a real example from something that's actually happened, or if you can create a hypothetical example to show the difference between performance and impact.
Okay, a guy can make, say, 56 from 50 balls.
56 from 50 balls, right?
From 50 balls. And the team lost.
Okay.
Right? You can have 3 or 4 top order batsmen who made, say, around 35, between 25 and 35 from about 15 to 20 balls. And then a guy who made 18 from 4. And you win the game. No longer reach a milestone, but they won the game. And that's the nature of T20 cricket and the impact that different players have on T20 cricket. And that's And that, in my view, one of the reasons why, as good a batsman as he is,
Who are we talking about
Shamarh
again?
Brooks,
Shamarh Brooks, right?
Shamarh Brooks was left out because of a Evan Lewis. Because Evan Lewis could give you, say, 45 from 20 balls, and you win. On another day, Shamarh Brooks might give you a very well put together 50, but the team didn't get over the line.
I understand, I think, what you're trying to say, but the team getting over the line, to my mind, is not necessarily the final defining factor. I think 50 or 56 or 50 balls could help the team get over the line as well. In other words, let me say up front then, I think it depends on the situation. Because there's some situations in a T20 game where, and I think as recently as the last game that was played with the Kings, don't have these stats in front of me, but they were struggling, and there were a couple of people who came in and didn't score that quickly, but they helped to consolidate, and then Visa came in towards the end and counterattack. So I'm saying that there is room. It depends on, now, if a guy scores 56 off 50, when you're chasing 240 runs, and he came into bat with the score 45 for 1 in the 6th over or the 7th over, and he ends up scoring 56 off 50, he's probably hurt the team. But if a guy comes into bat with the score 20 for 4, okay, he may decide that situation requires him to be a bit more careful. So he may score 56 off 50. The team may win or the team may lose, but that's not his fault.
There's no absolute. There's no absolute. The point I'm just trying to make is the word impact. Mm-hmm. In T20 cricket, it goes beyond just.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but I think what we were discussing and where we may differ, and we can agree to disagree, it's not even worth the thrashing out too much, because I think all three of us are in agreement in terms of impact. That there's some players that can do stuff that other people can't do. But I just didn't want to compare it. I didn't want it to be seen as an opposite to performance.
Because I was also going to put another scenario. That person may score 56 or 50 balls, and the team falls short of the par. I lose the match.
Right.
You know, so it is different scenarios that.
Yeah, it depends on scenario. So we're not disputing the impact. I'm not disputing impact. It's just where you put it as impact versus performance. That's where I'm not so sure that I would put it that way. But I do understand what you mean by an impact player, a player who is likely or who has the potential to take the game by the scruff of the neck. For sure, we understand that.
Right. So I guess but because I wanted to also make the point, or I never give my take on the selection.
But then you always sit on the fence. So when do you give your take on the selection, man? You always leave Ayana out there hanging out. Ayana bears her heart and soul, and you leave her hanging out to dry, and you sit on the fence.
Yeah, brave though. But listen, what I never got what I was trying to say though is that I was never excited about even the anticipation of the selection of this team, because personally, I really don't hold out any great hope for the West Indies in this World Cup. I mean, the mere fact that we are at the stage where we have to qualify to get into the main draw is a deterrent as far as I'm concerned, you know, and it's a damper to any enthusiasm that I may want to generate towards West Indies' chances. And I'm going to say, no, I'm going to jump off the fence and say no and put my neck on the line. I will be the most shocked person if the West Indies have any impact whatsoever on this upcoming World Cup in Australia, this T20 World Cup, with this team that we're sending to Australia.
Oh, Ayana.
So that my next point is that, and I think I'm going to steal this one from somebody whom I know very well. For me, the most important aspect of this World Cup is the preparation, the beginning of the preparation to look to put out a competitive team for 2024 when we host the World Cup in the West Indies. I think that is more important to me than putting together whatever motley crew you can put together to send to Australia to represent West Indies, because we have to be represented.
Well, let's hope by 2024, you said. Let's hope by then that we can choose players and bring them through the ranks, develop them, work with them, so that when we pick that team, we're not picking people that have not been playing before. Let's hope that we can get past that.
Right, but as I said, I think that is more important to me, to start to use this as a takeoff point, preparation towards 2024, and
if we win, that's a good bonus. Then you're saying,
and I reiterate, I have no great hopes for the West Indies in the 2022 T20 World Cup.
What about you, Ayana?
Well, I think at this point I could call a lawyer. For my for my thoughts, because he didn't call it there, but he has stolen that. I've said it before.
Oh, okay.
I've said it before, and I'm just.
I would hold off on the lawyer though, because it may be good for you in the long run that he was the one who said it and not you. Suppose the guys get up and win.
They did wake up for him.
Exactly. So you should be happy that he said it before you did.
In all seriousness though, I would like to see the likes of, Kyle Mears, Raymond Reefer, Jason Holder, Obed McCoy, Akil Hussain, for them whose careers are just really taking off, to stamp their names on the global stage. And you know that when 2024 comes, they are like the leaders of the team. Young Nicholas Pooran, I think he still has some areas to mature. I think that he doesn't really settle back long enough. So I think that this is going to be a learning encounter for those youngsters, and they need to start to play competitive cricket and build a winning culture amongst themselves as they go forward over the next couple of years.
I like the name you mentioned, Nicholas Pooran. I say I like the name because I think it is, for me, an example of the unfortunate state of affairs. I keep saying there's something called the development process. And, we don't really have a clue. Now, granted, part of the problem is that there's no control by anybody in Cricket West Indies over what happens in CPL or any CPL team, as far as I can see. But Nicholas Pooran, as a young man, has been given more responsibility and more roles. How he is not totally confused, how he even manages to score runs from time to time, I find amazing. This young man, in the space of the last year or so, has been the captain of the team, the vice captain of the team, first of all, standing captain, the wicketkeeper, then not the wicketkeeper, batting as a finisher, batting at number 3 or number 4, and most recently now in the CPL, we've seen him open the batting. I mean, if someone had asked me to plan a program to confuse a player, to totally perplex him, I don't think I could have come up with a better plan than the one that Pooran has been the victim of.
Nicholas Pooran is a product of the modern day cricket concept. Nicholas Pooran's claim to fame has been in the various franchise leagues across the globe. Nicholas Pooran is, he used to be, up to very recently, one of the most in-demand players on the T20 circuit for a couple of years as well. And I think our dependency on the franchise leagues to look towards providing us with players, as particularly in the white ball formats. If you look at West Indies cricket, you would notice none of the people who frequent the franchise circuit play in the West Indies red ball cricket, play in the West Indies test team. except maybe for a Jason Holder, who's an exceptional all-rounder, mind you, and we're now trying to develop. But and I'm not even going to call any other names because he's the only one who has commanded a position. So I think that Nicholas Puran, like a number of other players, the Shamarh Myers, the Fabian Allens, the Romario Shepherds, and these kind of guys, these guys have been pigeonholed into white ball cricketers with no use whatsoever, of no use whatsoever to West Indies cricket in the longer format. We depend on, with us not having, let's say, a competition of our own. There's no competition in the West Indies for West Indian players to present themselves. It's just a matter of, Ayana can describe it for me, who who is your agent, who are your connections, if you know anybody that own a franchise. That's how the CPL, for instance, is set up. It has nothing to do with merit and national selection and representation. And Nicholas Puran, I'm afraid, along with a number of other young players, are the victims.
No, I'll tell you something, Wendo. It's sad. It's ironic. It's sad. We can call it many things. If we were not in a situation, quite as far as I'm aware, and if I'm wrong, I don't mind being corrected. As far as I'm aware, I don't know that the other international entities are in a similar position to us, whereby the local people, coaches and so on, don't have any meaningful influence over what happens. I think CPL is probably the only one like that. But if I'm wrong, correct me. But what I really want to say is that if this were a normal T20 regional competition like what we had before, okay, we would be better placed than probably any of the other major cricket entities right now to prepare for this World Cup. Because we're about to Puran again, just as an example, because if you really look through it, you will see other examples. But Puran stands out. Puran is going to be the captain of the West Indies side at the T20, as far as we know. His name is the captain. Once he doesn't get injured or anything like that, he'll be the captain. Who's the captain of his franchise?
Phil Pollard.
Kevin Pollard. Now, if that were, let's say, a national team, one, I would like to think that the national selectors would have given Puran the captaincy so he gets to get more experience, because he's still relatively young, very young at it, not relatively, he's very young as an international captain. So that in itself shows the disconnect between CPL and the interests of West Indies cricket. And that is really what we're up against. And I don't say that because I expect that it can change, because we know that it is what it is. But it's just sad. Just think about it, Wayne. If this CPL were owned by Cricket West Indies, what a fantastic opportunity. Korea would be playing, wouldn't he? Korea most likely would have been playing, because the selectors, I said most likely, because I mean, is there such a big disconnect then between our national selectors or national, hold on, let me get it right. Is there such a big disconnect between the people who select the West Indies team and the people who select the national teams? And I'm talking about CPL now. Because if that is so, we can't be serious.
I can use Korea as the example. Yannick Correa played.
No, but Yannick Correa.
Listen to me, Philip. Listen to me, Philip. Yannick Correa played in the 2019 Super Cup as captain of the victorious, the champion, emerging West Indies emerging team.
Yes.
In 2020, Yannick Correa did not make Trinidad and Tobago's side for the Super Cup. Mm-hmm. So but in 2022, he's playing for the West Indies in the same 50-over competition. So he's able to make a West Indies team without playing for Trinidad.
I surrender.
If I answer your
all
question.
That means is that is worse than I thought.
What I was also going to say about the captaincy issue, and the Pollard Pura situation,
Mm.
maybe the selectors know something that the West Indies selectors don't know.
Say that again, man, for me. Yeah.
Maybe the franchise selections and the persons making decision, there's something that they know that the West Indies selectors don't know.
As it relates to the captaincy?
As it relates to the captaincy of the Trinidad franchise.
Okay. Maybe.
Okay.
All right. So I don't know. I don't think there's much more that can be said, guys. You guys have written off you've dampened my spirits. You've written off any chance of West Indies doing well in the competition. We have looked at the positives and negatives in terms of team selection. I like where Ayana, I like how you and Ayana, put the whole thing out there where Ayana is saying that she's looking for, and she named some of the guys, she might have left out a few, but for the developing players on the squad to really make a name for themselves. And you made the point that this should be seen as a starting point to build for the 2024. And I really can't fault you guys. I think that's some people may not see it as positive, but I see it as very, very positive, but more importantly, very realistic. So thanks, guys. And all we can do is hope for the best. I would say, though, that whatever the outcome, I don't see it being as disastrous as last year. And I think the West Indies as an entity made a mockery of international T20 cricket. First of all, by some aspects of the team selection and non-selection, and by the manner in which some of the players use the playing field, I would say, to make mock sport. So I think we've gone past that. And whatever the guys do in terms of outcomes, at least I think they should be able to take the cricket seriously and try to see how they can perform.
Well, Philip, I talk from my head, I speak from my judgment, but if I were to speak from my heart as a West Indian fan, I hope that I'm wrong.
Oh, of course. All West Indian fans would hope that you're wrong. But if you're right, let's hope that the lesson will be learned. That's the important thing. Thanks, Ayana. Thanks, Wayne. We'll be back on Anything Cricket. Let's talk. That's our show. Thanks for watching. Join us again soon for another episode of Anything Cricket. Let's talk.